So you've been watching the Traspt HG452. Now this is the third of these vehicles that they've brought out. You might remember FMS brought out a bunch of little scale cars over the last 2 years or so, where they had opening doors and all the rest of it, all the features and sound and whatnot. Traspt have been doing the same kind of thing for a while. And in fact, they started out with a bunch of the older stuff, like the Toyota Bruiser knockoff, and then the Hilux High-Lift knockoff as well. They've been quite good. They were the Tamiya copies. But since then, they've actually started making their own stuff, and I love to see that. And apparently these are all licensed. Now you stick the stickers on yourself, and this is a lesson for you not to do it if you wear glasses. Don't do it without glasses in a dark room like I did, or you'll end up with the Toyota not being level. Little electronics sections under there, including your power switch. Now the battery's in the rear, and although it's a custom battery, 600 milliamp hour, just a couple of 18650s, or I mean it doesn't even weigh that much, so I don't know. It says it's 600 milliamp hour, so maybe it's even the smaller ones. It's a 2S balance plug, so you could actually connect almost any 2S battery in here and be fine. So you don't have to use this, but if you do use this is the first time I've seen the charger integrated on the battery in this kind of model. So that's actually pretty cool. Now the documentation is somewhat incomplete, at least it seems that way. 4 AAAs, bunch of switches on the top, but you won't need to touch most of them. You'll mostly play with, out of these 10 dip switches, you'll mostly play with switches 4 and 5. 4 being your sound, turning that on or off, and 5 being your smoke machine. There's a smoke machine. And it's not actually a clunkily done smoke machine either. You feel it in the back there, and it comes out the exhaust pipe, and it actually just wafts out just slowly. So when it's idling, you see it just a little bit, kind of like you'd see it on a cool morning, which is kind of like today, honestly. It didn't come with any smoke fluid, and it says when you refill it with this little cap in the back to only use 1 mil at the most, 0.5 to 1 mil. I have smoke fluid from various other smokers because I've been in the hobby for a while, and anyone who's watched my channel for ages, you know I've got a lot of cars. I've got a few different smoke fluids, and I might test and see which one works, but I expect most of them will. It'll just be like some copper braid that's got voltage run through it inside this. It's actually going to be fairly thirsty on the battery, so if you use the smoker, just be prepared for your run time to be probably even halved. It takes quite a bit of power to heat this up to make it smoke, so just keep that in mind. And the other switch you might need out of all these is number 10. When you have it turned down, you've got a horn here, and when you have it turned up, you've got a volume switch for your sound. It's nice that it's got a sound kit in it, but it's not a great sound kit, and to my ear the idle is revving way too high and it sounds much too much like a tractor. The model on which this is clearly based will not sound like that. It will actually be a lot more quiet. The other thing I noticed is you've got 4-link suspension front and rear. Usually with chassis mounted servos that would not be good for bump steer, but the travel is so small. There is bump steer, but it's extremely minor. So you can see the wheels kind of turn a little like that as it compresses. Ideally, with chassis mounted servo, you'd have 3-link steering and a panhard as well. There's no panhard, it's just 4-link and chassis mounted servo at both ends. It's a single speed, and I think it's a little underpowered. Not that you need this to be fast, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's a bit of, what's the word? There's plenty of friction in the drivetrain, which means when you're trying to accelerate, you kind of need to pull the throttle in a fair way before it starts to move. Then you can relax a bit and it'll slow down. But the motor doesn't have the torque required to give you a nice slow speed. It's such a complex little thing, and everything's all self-contained. This would benefit from the larger can that you can get from Endura. Would it fit? You might need to cut some plastic just looking at it. I can't really show this on camera, which is why you're just getting me staring at it, but I think if you got a bit creative with some cutting, particularly of the plastic on that side, it'll cut into the footwell a little bit on the passenger side, but I reckon we could probably fit a bigger motor, and there's clearance for the suspension, so a bigger motor might be smart. and it's just friction shocks, but it's quite stiff springs as well, so it's not really a concern. Really, this model is all about the scale-ness. It doesn't drive as nicely as the little FMSs, but it's also way cheaper. I'll put on the screen what it currently is. I got this in the first round. This was given to me by Banggood. They haven't talked to me for a while, but they've approached me again and asked me to choose a model. So I chose this because I noticed it was new and it looked interesting in scale. This is more of a toy thing than what we usually do, but for a toy model, it certainly has a lot of hobby grade looking stuff under there. I think this is actually an interesting one. So if you've been wondering about this new car, it's an interesting driver. You cycle between the steering modes with the power button, front steering, four-wheel steering, crab steering, rear steering, then front steering again. And you've got trim available in F1 and F2 on these little rockers here. Most of these other buttons don't do anything, as far as I can tell. But really, you buy this just to enjoy it. It really is quite a pretty car. There's a full interior, it looks good. Just don't expect to get too extreme with the driving, and I think you'll be happy. They're all-terrain tyres, but for a model of this size, that means they're basically slicks. There's not a lot of traction to be found, but it's still somehow satisfying in that limitation. Okay, I've turned the sound and smoke off. We've got some loose dirt here. Let me show you about crawling and why this is a challenge. I've got four-wheel steering. That's going to give us the best possible it's being able to adjust your wheelbase a little bit with rear-wheel steering. So this car needs all the help it can get. I'm just trying to get over this bit here. It's very loose. So we're actually, the motor's stalling out. That's called a torque stall. We're exceeding the maximum torque it can output. Battery's about half full. So this is a bit much for it, isn't it? If you like having something pretty sitting on your desk, particularly if you like this model of car, I think this is a worthy purchase. If you're into crawling in this scale, avoid it. It's going to be a lousy crawler. Don't get this. But if you just like the idea of the car for what it is, certainly the features deliver. It's quite a complete model. I would say by all means check it out. I'll put a link in the description to where I bought this with the credit that Banggood gave me to buy it, so you can get it too. I don't think I've ever redeemed a cent of commission from them, so if that helps you with your decision, I'm not actually looking to make a positive review. I'm just looking to make an honest review here. And for what it is, I like the car. It's a rubbish crawler. It's a fun little trail truck, as long as you drive within its limitations, and it just looks fabulous. Thank you, Banggood, for sending it to me. Guys, throw me a like if you got something out of this. Thank you for my channel supporters, particularly Andy Yates, who's been with me from the start at the top tier. But all of you guys who have been following along, because there are a handful of you, thank you. And I'll catch you next time on RCTNT. We have some slightly bigger models than this to look at. There's just a lot going on and a lot to be excited about, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Catch you guys next time.